Good morning, everybody. It is 9 o'clock on a Friday morning. I'm Jane Monreal. You're watching Live Impact News here on WCNC Plus. Thank you for downloading the app to your Roku, Fire, or Apple TV and spreading the word, because this is how you get your news pretty much unedited as we get it into the newsroom. Top headlines from a local, state, and international level. So speaking of which, latest strikes now between Israel and Iran. We're tracking a new deadline from President Trump, who has yet to decide on how involved the U.S. is going to get in the conflict between Israel and Iran. It's been a week now since their conflict has been rising and keeps on getting intense as the days go by. She has the very latest from Washington.
Upping the pressure for a diplomatic deal with Iran, President Trump setting a new timeline for his decision on whether the U.S. will strike nuclear targets inside Iran. The White House press secretary quoting the president.
Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks.
European diplomats meeting today with Iranian officials in Geneva, while inside the White House, President Trump is increasingly relying on a small group of advisors, including his vice president and secretary of state, to make his choice. That's according to two defense officials and a senior administration official, who also say Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has been sidelined. The president recently publicly dismissed her March testimony that the intelligence community did not believe Iranian leadership had authorized building a nuclear weapon.
I don't care what she said. I think they were very close to having it.
The White House asserting Iran has all it needs to make a bomb, and though the process would take time, President Trump is adamant that cannot happen.
It can't have a nuclear weapon. Too much devastation. And they'd use it. I believe they'd use it.
Only the U.S. has the bunker-busting bombs that could destroy a critical underground Iranian nuclear facility, though a decision to strike could provoke an attack on U.S. military bases in the Middle East and interrupt the global energy supply. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Stateside wanted to bring you a live picture now of episode 26. What am I talking about? Kilauea volcano erupting once again on Hawaii time overnight. Live picture right now. Beautiful picture as the eruption is continuing again with just lava fountains for you. 3 a.m. Okay, isn't that nice? So, I mean, at least there's no, from what we understand, Chris, right? Chris Mulcahy is inside the Live Impact studio. No one is there in the vicinity to have to deal with this in the immediate, immediate area.
Yeah.
No
There's,
real
it's
threat.
in its own little park, like it, yeah.
Oh, good, a volcano park.
Yeah.
Yep. As your 9 a.m. volcanologist. Yeah, it's we're good. Everything's
We're good.
We're good.
Yeah, the lava fountains,
Yeah.
1,000 feet, as high as 1,000 feet. Isn't that nice? From the USGS this morning.
Wow, that's
Isn't
impressive.
that cool? So we're kind of feeling hot today.
Not lava hot.
Not lava hot.
Luckily.
Just sauna hot.
Yeah, like sauna, and it's like, why did I come in here? I
here in the Live
immediately
Impact
regret my
studio.
decision. Or like hot yoga.
Hot
I did-
yoga.
I did that once.
I love
The
hot
best part of
yoga.
hot yoga is when you leave hot yoga.
Stop.
No, I'm just joking. I just didn't
Good
do well
for
in the
ya.
heat doing the downward dog. That's just me. If you love hot yoga, I apologize.
Yes.
That was just a joke. We are looking at a beautiful blue sky for today. Check it out, Uptown, huh?
Gorge.
Who's ready for the weekend?
So ready.
All right, well, I have something very special because guess what? Today is the pick of the week, y'all.
It's a party.
Yeah, downloading this horn app is the best thing I ever did on my phone.
Nice.
But yeah, we love to use the DJ air horn whenever we have a situation like this because this is very odd. I'm telling you that 90 degrees is the coolest high you will have over the next 10 days at least. Yeah, so welcome to it all.
Coolest high,
It
okay.
officially is going to be, yeah, I know. I feel really say the coolest day is 90 degrees. Something is not right. Which one of these things don't go together type of deal. deal. Also, another interesting stat, officially at 10:41, we are a part of the summer solstice, a.k.a. we're
That's
now
why I brought
starting
in
summer.
the pinky, bright pink.
Oh, you did?
Like, it's summertime.
Oh, yeah.
Summertime.
I actually didn't see what you wore.
Yeah,
All I see right now is a Jane head. So that was all right, there it is. Yeah, it looks nice. Hot summer pink. That's what we'll call it.
Thank you.
Well, I think the biggest pessimism that comes with this day and these days is that it's only getting shorter from here. Yes, you are correct, but we're talking about seconds. Don't focus in on the seconds. Focus in on the hours. It's a life lesson as well. You have 14 hours, 32 minutes, and 1 second of daylight. So from sunrise to sunset, that's identical tomorrow. Only less than a millisecond difference, and then we'll see a big change in our temperatures working our way through the weekend. Right now we're at 77 degrees. It's gorgeous. We have sunshine. We're cruising through. Our dew points are on the way down. We actually had a cool front. Can't call it a cold front because nothing cold about this. Bringing in just really some relatively drier air. So by the afternoon, we still have a little bit of stickiness to the air, but I'll stop here. This morning felt good, right? It was a good feeling in the morning. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice day. Well, that's pretty much the afternoon's going to feel like. So even though, yes, we have the upper 80s, it's more of a drier upper 80s. Not quite what Arizona and New Mexico deal with for their dry
All
heat.
relative.
But, yeah, relatively drier because we're looking at just instead of that uncomfortable meh air, we have more of a it's no problem to a tad bit sticky. And we'll see those values come up steadily through this weekend where realistically you should be living in the orange most of the next 3 months. That's that uncomfortable bar. But there it is again. Because of the lowest dew point, because of the lowest high temperature, today, again, was the pick of the week. I won't plague you with my DJ air horn, I promise. I kind of want to do it
Needs
again,
to
but
rewind.
I won't.
Pickleball
Maybe at the end.
forecast.
We like specifics, right? Well, right.
Yes.
Very specific.
Yeah, it still says 76 because I set this for the last hour. It's 77 now. So you have the mid to the upper 70s if you're pickleballing over the next few. I've never played pickleball. Have any of you guys?
I have. I did a lot in Florida.
Is it worth the hype that everyone's talking about?
It's really
It's fun.
addicting.
It's
Yeah.
addicting.
Yeah, it's that sound of the ping.
Yeah, it's a satisfying sound.
It's a very
So
yes.
ASMR while you're playing
Kinda,
sports?
yeah.
Okay.
Kind of. I don't know.
It helps when you have a tall player playing with you because
That'll be my husband.
Yeah, like Greg's 6'4", so he covers more of the court,
man.
and I can just stay in my little corner.
Yeah, Greg has a wingspan.
Yeah. It's nice.
That man.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's
well, that's good.
Fun. I
So
would
get a
hear-
tall partner.
Okay,
It makes
well-
it a lot more enjoyable.
Well, I need to get some taller friends then, because I think
borrow Greg.
I'm friends with a lot of average length wingspans, except for Greg.
Yeah.
So midday we're looking at the lower 80s, but in the afternoon 89. So I have a high of 90, but realistically we're really in the mid to the upper 80s. I always tell people the high temperature is just the high. Picture it like a graph that you have a little pinnacle of the top chart. You're visiting the 90-degree point really, really briefly. So I think at most maybe 5-10 minutes. Some people in the Greater Charlotte area will just really stick to 88 and 89. I busted this out yesterday. That was our popsicle stick
Popsicles.
forecast. So our headlines, we already mentioned one. Today's the pick of the week. Biggest thing, the storm chances. We getting rid of them. Yesterday we were talking about a general window. We covered 22 counties. Most of us were fine. But then Tradisha Werder actually went up to Caldwell County to show all the flooding and some of the damage they saw. So it kind of just shows that, yeah, maybe you weren't impacted, but some of our area was. Truly, everything went to the north, which is not a complaint for if you live south, where it all happened. But we're not going to have any rain chances anywhere close to that, even over the next 10 days, because I think if we do see one, it's that typical 20% on the 7-day that says, hey, you might have a pop-up storm. And then the weekend gets hotter, and the next week still feeling like 100 to 105. I didn't even have to change the purple popsicle stick because that's the main headline. Our warmer lows are also, I think, a really interesting story. 70 degrees is our low tomorrow, then 77. That is a very warm low on Tuesday morning. And then you have the mid 70s, and you know that I'm your stat man. Beep, bop, bop, bada, boom. 12th warmest set of lows that we've had through 19 days of June. So I know that's a hyper-specific stat, and nobody will probably care to double check my work here. But really what this shows is that through 19 days, our lows have averaged 68.6 degrees. That is substantial. absolutely substantial because we really, for the max load that we average in June, it's 69. So it really just puts it in perspective. So by the end of it, once we finish out the month, we could be averaging 70 degrees, which would mean that for the start of our June, every day was likely well above average. Now, the other stats, 27th warmest overall, 33rd wettest through this point. Not as impressive as a near top 10. Also, this is the big news. We talked about the Nick Icks, but we actually also have some Ben-approved pool days. As I mentioned, I'm trying to put all you in these graphics. The reason why we have this is there'd be times he would say, hey, is it a pool day? When he first installed his pool, it literally rained like every Saturday for months. And this was like a few years ago. Well, 0% chance for rain, lower to the mid 90s today through Sunday, and mostly sunny skies. It doesn't get as more pool ridden as this. We also have other factors, like maybe you can do a kiddie pool. We just got a slip and slide, and it's awesome. However, if you get what your knees feel like if you hit the semi-dry part of the slide.
Yeah.
I got it for JT, by the way, and I mentioned
was going to
this.
say, who's using it
Yes,
more, you or JT?
Me, and I have no regrets. It's awesome. It has the dual 16 feet. Oh, it's great.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah. So that's
My yard's not that big.
personal. The 16 feet.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
16 feet, that's long.
16 feet is pretty long.
A little patio.
You have
That's
a
all we
good
have.
sized yard.
60, yeah, no, I have a decent sized yard, but only one comfortable part of grass that I put it on, so I actually have to remove it or else it's going to kill the grass. Anyways, enough of my personal life. 90 degrees is the real feel today, right around the actual temperature, but then notice how this is on the stair step. This is factoring in the return of the moisture, feeling like the upper 90s through this weekend, and look at them go, look at them go. They could go to near 105. So 104 is the peak I have for Tuesday, Wednesday. That's a significant level because usually over 103 that heat exhaustion becomes more of a possibility. Regardless, really, Monday through all of next week, you have a shot of it feeling like 100 degrees. And then our 3-day heat impact actually shows an extreme threat on Tuesday and Wednesday, meaning that we will have a chance for a heat advisory. A heat advisory is issued whenever there's a chance that heat indices or your heat index can reach 105 to 109. So we're going to be very close to that range. Also, as I mentioned, we're taking a break from the rain. How long has it been since we saw this? It's not until really next late Tuesday into Wednesday that you even have an isolated chance for rain. And for the first time since Helene, we have a 0 drought and a 0 dry status across North and South Carolina. Check out this map. This is crazy. Let me see. This was April 21st, and I'm just going to roll tape. This is the improvement that we've seen over the last couple of months.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
we never
Wiped
see
the
that.
slate clean. And it was for a bad reason, but Helene officially completely cleared the slate. Last time that we've had a completely blank North and South Carolina map was October 15th, looking back at it. Okay, I feel like there's one more graphic that we need to get to. This one really leaps and bounds, shows where we're going. 95, 97, 99, 98, 96. Next week's going to be hot, y'all. Plain and simple. Mid to the upper 90s. Each day has a shot to feel like 100 plus. This is the thing. Your body tells you when it's hot. Oftentimes we push past the fatigue. We ignore the dry throat that we're thirsty. If you stay hydrated, that's 90% of the battle. Truly. Some of us also forget the fact that standing in direct sunshine makes you feel 10 degrees hotter. So if you factor in a hot and humid day, 99 on Tuesday under a mostly sunny sky, realistically you feel like 110 plus. And at that point, that's where it can really get you. So just take care of yourself, plain and simple. It's always the first big heat wave that I think we have the most reports, and I don't want that for us, our area, or any of you watching. So take care and be safe.
All right, we will. You got slip and slide plans?
I got slip and slide plans.
we have-
Actually, and once a week I'm trying to bring JT to a new park. So I need.
very nice.
That's a
Does,
good
does
goal.
anyone have any park recommendations?
I don't know, but I believe I'm going to Crowder's Park tomorrow. I put that little seed.
Ooh.
You guys been?
Never.
No.
Oh,
No.
no?
Yeah. Also,
Draganovich says it's a good one.
that's what I've heard. He was talking about it last week, oddly. But also, I've never been to Grandfather Mountain for the big Highland Games. We talked about that.
Wow.
So that's on my to-do list.
Okay.
Now, I'm not going to be throwing huge logs or
Yeah.
anything, but I'd love to see that. Yeah, there's so many things that I have on my Charlotte area bucket list,
right.
and I'm not even close. So Crowder's is a good one to check off.
All right,
so
good,
yeah.
good. I'm
That's
glad
good
I know
low-hanging fruit.
How
Ann
to do that.
Springs Close Greenway down.
I love
in
that
Fort Mill.
one.
That you've been to that one. That's a nice. It's a
What
nice
is that one again?
greenway. It's in Fort Mill. It's Ann Springs
Ann
Close
Springs.
Greenway. It's really
Okay.
nice. Good trails.
Oh,
everything.
okay.
I'm actually going to Fraser Park this weekend for a weenie dog meetup.
Where's Fraser?
It's in Uptown.
Is that Uptown?
Oh, okay. Oh, a lot
So
of
it's-
things going on in
if,
Uptown.
If JT wants to see little weenie dogs,
Oh, when's that?
it's tomorrow at 10 a.m.
So it's just
So
a bunch of
much.
weenie
Just
dogs?
yeah, it's like 50 weenie dogs, and
Oh
we
my
all
gosh.
go and just gawk at our weenie dogs.
That's too
What?
cute.
yeah.
Okay, well that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
Very
if you didn't hear anything today, knows that there's going to
Weenie
be an
dog
excessive
meetup
amount.
tomorrow
Yes.
in Uptown. We have FIFA Club World Cup
That's right.
Sunday at B of A.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I'm more excited about the weenie dogs.
Okay.
Yeah. I know there's a golden doodle meetup too. I
Yes.
think
Oh my
too.
Gosh.
Corgi meetup, like every breed.
Really?
Yeah, there's a bunch.
So
of
there's
Wow.
every dog meetup pretty much. Is it mainly on
You-
Saturdays?
I don't know, actually. I know the weenie dogs, and I
All
know
right.
the corgi people are on it.
Name a dog breed. They
There's
might
probably
have
a meetup.
And,
Yeah.
and both of those dogs, and this is no disrespect, have funny walks and
yeah.
runs.
Yeah.
So
They have nice
the
waddles.
entertainment value just makes you smile.
Oh,
so.
yeah.
That's great.
Well, enjoy all, and of course I have to weatherman this. Back your hands, 7-second rule, testing the pavement.
Yes.
But 10 a.m., that's a good time to bring out your corgi, wiener dog, or whatever dog
Yep.
you have.
Speaking of the dogs and the hands and the paws. All right. Chris Mulcahy, thank you for joining us. Great forecast for the weekend as we bring you back out here in the Live Impact studio. Speaking of getaways, local or otherwise, if you plan on taking I-40 out to say Tennessee, Western North Carolina. There's some trouble if you haven't heard. There was a major mudslide a couple of nights ago. We broke it here on Live Impact News. And our Colin Mayfield also talked to TDOT, Tennessee Department of Transportation, for the very latest. Want to play this interview for you that aired previously here on WCNC Plus. Get you some more information here on Live Impact News. Thanks for watching.
We're just in the early parts of this repair. It seems like, I mean, I know you guys have been working on I-40 for more than 10 months now, as I just said, but it seems like this has hampered the progress, right?
Well, we're continuing to assess that entire section of roadway. I mean, where the flooding and the rock slide occurred 24 hours ago, that is around mile marker 450, very close to the Tennessee-North Carolina state line. Hurricane Helene recovery on I-40 is in 7 separate sections between mile marker 446 and mile marker 451. We do believe that's one of those sections where we're trying to rebuild I-40 was affected by this recent rock slide and flooding. Fortunately, it looks like Mother Nature is going to do us a little bit of a favor over the next week or so. Have a lot of dry conditions, not very much rain. That'll allow us to continue to investigate, see what else needs to be done on that one section of I-40 for Hurricane Helene recovery. But certainly anybody who travels on the interstate between Tennessee and North Carolina, what we saw yesterday and what we're dealing with right now is certainly the last thing that anybody wants to deal with.
Absolutely. Can totally agree with those sentiments. I actually travel that corridor quite heavily to get my children in Knoxville who live in Louisville. So for me, it was great when you guys opened one lane on both sides. That was just, and I know North Carolina was involved in that as well, but I cannot tell you the stress that took off. And I know now, the pressure's back on. So like I said, I feel for you guys and thinking about that because as we know, it's such a critical corridor for Tennessee and North Carolina to work together, and I know you guys are making that a priority. I guess can I ask, in terms of the debris and really just the rock slides, right? It leads me to believe that if we see heavy rain again, which we're in that mode, that things like this could happen. Maybe along other parts of I-40. I mean, what are the concerns going through this severe weather season that you guys are still thinking on? Do you think this could happen again potentially?
It's certainly possible. This is an area that has proven to be prone to rock slides and mudslides, some flooding. So seeing what we've seen since yesterday is not extremely foreign. I mean, it's something that folks in this area are used to. The good news, at least, is that while there's a lot of debris on the roadway, a lot of mud, still standing water that we've got to wait to when that recedes, the good news is that this is not nearly as extensive as what we saw with Hurricane Helene. I mean, that wasn't just a generational storm, that was a multi-generational storm. It was something we've never seen before in our part of the country. Hopefully we never see that again. The work for this rock slide and flooding, we anticipated taking about 2 weeks until we get I-40 back to what it was before Wednesday afternoon. And our crews and our contractors will work diligently to get this roadway back open as quickly as possible.
My next question, Mark, is about those detours. I know you guys already have those up there. What should drivers realize as they are getting towards this area, and what detours would you suggest for folks to use?
Well, good thing that there are multiple interstates in this area that folks can use to get around the state line, Tennessee, North Carolina on I-40. So we're telling folks in Tennessee that they should use I-81 north and then take that to I-26 east and access North Carolina that way. Wide loads, much like it was during Hurricane Helene, before we got I-40 open on both sides of the state line, we're telling those wide loads to use I-81 north to I-77 south into Virginia and then back into North Carolina that way. So it does add some time, obviously, to folks that are trying to get to and from their vacation spots, just to and from their normal daily activities. But the most important thing is here that those interstates will keep them safe, because it's just not safe to travel between I-40, between Tennessee and North Carolina on I-40 right now, which is why we have it shut down.
That makes total sense, and hopefully people will heed that advice to make sure that everyone stays safe in that area, especially the workers and the law enforcement that obviously is helping in this endeavor. I guess my last thing would be, I spoke about the commerce, right, and how the economic impact, and you guys have really lessened that by trying to get a lane in each direction in both states. Talk about that work and really how you guys work together with the North Carolina DOT, because, like I said, I've been through that stretch. There's so much going on day to day. So what does that look like for folks that aren't there just behind the scenes?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I don't think that pictures and video really do it justice, what has happened to I-40 in Tennessee and North Carolina. And as bad as it is on our side of the state line, the amount of earth that was washed away on September 27th of 2024, North Carolina has it pretty bad as well. So this, unfortunately, is not the type of thing that can be a quick rebuild to have 2 lanes open in each direction on both sides of the state line. This is a long-term reconstruction project for both the TDOT, both the Tennessee Department of Transportation as well as the NCDOT. We talk with them all the time. We work with them all the time in trying to find the best ways to keep that traffic flowing, both for your normal everyday travelers and as well as all the commercial traffic that has to go through this area. So, we understand that, having that detour, while it is safer, it does add a lot of time. It can delay things. But again, the most important thing is to try to keep everybody safe here. And that's what we are dedicated to do.
Absolutely. I don't want to keep you too long on this holiday. I know you're working and on the stream for us, so we appreciate your time. But Mark, last thing I wanted to ask, did I miss anything? Anything that you wanted to elaborate on, tell folks about here in the Charlotte area? As I said, so many people go up to Gatlinburg and then go up to Knoxville as well and try to use I-40. So any other things that you just wanted to make note of?
I would tell folks that you should always adhere to all message boards that are on these roadways. And if you have any questions about what's going on in the Tennessee side of the state line, go to smartway.tn.gov. It gives real-time information as to what's happening on our interstates and state routes. So if there are crashes, if there are backups, roadways that are closed, obviously like I-40 at the state line, we have our traffic cameras on there as well. It's a terrific resource for folks to use. You should definitely check it out before you get behind the wheel, but obviously don't use that resource when you are driving. Make sure that you're keeping your phone hands-free.
Absolutely. Want to make sure that everyone is safe out there. Mark, thank you. And thank the Tennessee DOT leaders out there who are doing all the work, especially in this heat. We're thinking of you guys, and I hope you can get some relief for the next couple of days. But again, thanks for the work and the time tonight, my friend.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Bringing back out here live now at 9:25. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Jane Monreal with you every Monday to Friday from 9 to 11. Our Colin Mayfield getting caught up with a conversation and interview, the latest. They're going along I-40 because of a mudslide through Tennessee, connecting out to western North
We'll be reaching
Carolina.
out today, too, to see if there's any
We'll get
more
the very
updates.
latest.
Yeah.
Okay, that'll be good. Everyone's monitoring that.
Right.
I know
I would imagine that the DOTs would be doing a press conference today, but if we have it, we'll have it here live on Live Impact.
Okay, that'll be great because my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, we're talking about traveling
We're
I-40.
heading out there?
Yes.
Oh,
and so
no. Now they
it's a
got to
good
go all the way
thing
around.
You caught WCNC Charlotte because they heard about I-40 being closed.
Just
and
keep us
affected.
on.
Yes. So good call there, Carlene. You just want to keep us on because if things are going to pertain to you, you want to go, ooh, I got it on.
Yep.
So WCNC Plus, we thank you for downloading the app and telling your friends from across the country because we also have great conversations here. We talk about issues like health. June is Men's Health Month, and today we want to discuss a health issue that's quite often overlooked when it comes to men, osteoporosis. While many of us think that it only pertains to women's health, there's actually a reality that is quite startling. 1 in 4 men diagnosed with osteoporosis. So joining us right now here in the Live Impact studio, Joanne Holzinger from Atrium MSKI here in Charlotte, as well as the Bone Health and Osteoporosis Foundation. Joanne, who goes by JC, is here. And JC, thanks for joining us now. We appreciate you coming in, JC. When we hear osteoporosis, like I said, we think of older women. Why is this condition overlooked in men?
Well, men in general tend to not go to the doctor quite as often. And there's a myth out there that osteoporosis only happens in women. But in reality, like you just mentioned, 1 in every 4 men will suffer an osteoporotic fracture. In fact, more men will break a bone from osteoporosis than will be diagnosed with prostate cancer, which is a pretty shocking statistic. There's over 80,000 men in the U.S. who break their hip every year. And even though less men have osteoporosis, the consequences of, for example, a hip fracture are much more significant. Over 37% of men who break their hip will die within 1 year.
Oh my goodness.
Which is
That's
scary.
Yeah, quite scary and startling. Why are the risk factors so high for men dealing with osteoporosis then?
I think it's people are not as aware that it happens in men. Our population is aging. Men are living longer now. You know, women tend to get osteoporosis younger after menopause. Men really start to develop osteoporosis about 10 years after women. So if you're not aware, osteoporosis is a silent disease. You don't feel like your bones are hurting or that they're weak. And most of the time, unfortunately, you don't get diagnosed until you break a bone.
Oh boy. I want to show a picture here of what a normal bone looks like, JC, versus osteoporosis. So
Yes.
stark difference here. Explain what's happening.
Well, basically, even though our bones look very strong on the outside, the inside of our bone structure looks more like an English muffin. And normally there's a constant remodeling that goes on inside the bone, but as we age, that remodeling shifts to mainly bone removal instead of building new bone. So as you can see, the architecture starts to break down and those nooks and crannies start to get bigger. So the inside of our bone is much more hollow. Then when we fall, it is much easier to break.
Okay, so obvious question here. Let's talk about prevention. What can people do, really men and women do then, to not only prolong any sort of weakening of the bones, but strengthen and go the other direction?
Well, diet and vitamins like calcium and vitamin D supplements, if you're not getting them in your diet. The Mediterranean diet is actually the best diet for bone and
Everything,
heart.
all health, yes.
Yes. You know, cold water fish, dark green leafy veggies, and you'll be surprised, the newest superfood for bone health is prunes.
Oh, okay.
They did a huge study and found that people who eat about 5 of the dried prunes a day significantly increase their bone density. The bones love it.
All right,
So-
we're getting some prunes. And,
And then, of course, you know, weight-bearing exercise is very important, but also strength and resistance
strength training, right. I mean, that goes both men
Yes.
and women too.
And interestingly, strength and resistance training seems to have a bigger impact with men. It changes their bone quality more than with women.
Oh,
So that's
interesting.
a good thing.
That's great. JC, let's talk about hormones. And I'm reading that low testosterone is a potential risk factor. Explain the connection there.
Well, you know, with women, they lose estrogen after menopause, and men gradually lose testosterone. And testosterone is linked with estrogen in men as well. So as they age and their levels go down, they are also subject to this bone thinning.
Wow. Okay. Let's talk about some practical advice then. We talked about eating, diet, strength training. How do we know, or how do men know when to get checked, or if they should get checked?
Well, be aware of the risk factors. For example, men who have been treated with hormone blockers or chemo or radiation, certain diseases such as diabetes or rheumatoid arthritis. If you're a smoker, stop. If you drink a lot of alcohol, more than 2 per day, your risk factors, and also family history, of course. Those risk factors, if you have them, talk to your doctor and say, you know, I've got these things going on. Can I have a bone density test? Most men don't get checked until they're about 70, but sometimes that's too late if they've had ongoing issues, you know, with chemo or radiation or diseases. And certain medications like protein pump inhibitors for reflux, SSRI meds for depression, all of those can slow down our absorption of important bone nutrients.
Okay, good information, JC. Where do people need to go? Where can we go and get more information if we wanted to check it out on our own
Thank
time?
you for asking that.
course.
Bone Health and Osteoporosis Foundation, BHOF.org, is the national website, and it has a fantastic resource from diet to podcasts exercises. It's all there in human language, not doctor speak.
Oh, yes. Anybody would appreciate that, too. All right. That's great stuff, JC. I mean, not great for the men that we love with health, but we want to take that knowledge and be empowered and move in the right direction to advocate for our own health. So osteoporosis is one of those topics that we should address. Thank you for coming into the Live Impact studio, JC.
Thank you for having me and bringing attention to this.
Pleasure. All right. Bring you back out here now at 9:35 on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Bit of a quiet day as far as news in our country and on our state, but an interesting event happening out of Massachusetts, the Battle of Bunker Hill. They're having an event. It is America's going to be 250 years this summer, so they are commemorating an event, getting ready for this weekend. And let's take you out there live now on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
Of the Battle of Bunker Hill, Alex Kane.
Good morning, everyone. There'll be a quiz after I'm finishing, so be sure to pay attention. We're here this weekend to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the Battle of Bunker Hill, which is one of the most significant engagements of the American Revolution. It's also an engagement that was Essex County's fight. Inside the redoubt was Fry's Battalion, which was composed of Merrimack Valley men from Essex County. Rushing to the rail fence to support the fight before the first attack was Little's regiment, which was composed of Newburyport men, North Shore men, and Cape Ann men. Standing in reserve during this time were men from Salem, Beverly, and Marblehead under the command of Glover. The Battle of Bunker Hill actually took place on a smaller hill known as Breed's Hill. The night before the battle, approximately 1,000 troops under the command of Colonel William Prescott were ordered to fortify the area. However, for some unknown reason, the soldiers did not fortify Bunker Hill and instead fortified Breed's Hill. They built a fortification under the cover of darkness. However, at dawn, British Royal Navy as well as the British Royal Artillery noticed the new American redoubt, prompting an immediate bombardment. Despite intensive fire, little food or rest, the colonial troops, many of them from Essex County, held firm, anxiously awaiting reinforcements. After a council of war, General Thomas Gage, along with Generals Howe, Clinton, and Burgoyne, quickly launched an amphibious landing to dislodge the American position. By early afternoon, approximately 2,000 regulars landed at Charlestown. Among the first reinforcements to enter the field during this landing were troops from New Hampshire, just north of Essex County, men from Rockingham County, under the command of Colonel John Stark. They took up a defensive position along a rail fence and fortified the shoreline along the Mystic River. Also arriving at this time was perhaps one of the most significant political and military leaders in the American cause, General Joseph Warren, who, although held the highest commanding rank on the battlefield for the American forces, chose instead to serve as a private and as a gentleman volunteer, thereby inspiring the men who served inside the redoubt. The British launched 3 assaults. The first 2 were disastrous. The Americans held their fire until the troops are almost on top of them. The famous "don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes." British light infantry and grenadier companies were absolutely torn apart. Entire companies suffered upwards of 90% casualty rates as they attempted to assault the American position. Other companies lost 3/4 and 9/10 of their companies. By the third assault, the Americans were exhausted and unfortunately dangerously low on out of fear to desert. Despite desperate attempts by Connecticut leader Israel Putnam to rally reinforcements, the redoubt could not hold and collapsed after the third final assault. In a brutal hand-to-hand combat scenario, many colonists fell by the way of the bayonet. Joseph Warren, sadly, was shot in the head and was killed. Though the British ultimately took the ground, it was at a costly victory. Over 1,000 casualties, more than half of their engaged forces, including over 100 British officers, were killed. The Americans suffered 450 casualties, most of them as they fled the battlefield after the redoubt collapsed. British General Clinton would later remark, "A few more such victories could have shortly put the British Empire to an end in America." This battle symbolizes the American resistance and convinced many on both sides of the conflict that the American Revolution would not be easily resolved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Now I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Jeremy Nicastro of the Gloucester Police Department, who is the incident commander for the weekend, and Gloucester Assistant Fire Chief and Emergency Management Director Robert Rivas, who are speaking about public safety. Good morning. My name is Lieutenant Jeremiah Nicastro. I'll be assigned the incident commander for the weekend for the Battle of Bunker Hill. That assignment has been made by our Police Chief Ed Conley. This weekend brings tremendous weather in Gloucester, and with tremendous weather we get tremendous traffic. We ask you, if you are not attending the Bunker Hill events and not parking for the Bunker Hill events, to avoid the area of Stagefort Park and Howe Avenue. We will have 2 electronic signboards along Essex Avenue that will state which parking lots are full. If the parking lots are full, do not waste your time and try to go to those parking lots. You can go on our Gloucester Police Facebook page. It's Gloucester Police Department officials in parentheses, and we will post throughout the day which parking lots are full. With good weather brings beach traffic, brings traffic all throughout the city. It also brings boat traffic. The drawbridge behind me will be going up and down throughout the day. We have to practice patience and safety. Please be cautious of the additional personnel and pedestrians in the street. Your head should be on a swivel looking for people crossing the street. Safety is our overall priority, and we look forward to a great weekend. Thank you.
Good morning. Assistant Chief Bob Rivas. I just want to reiterate what Jeremy just said. We just want to welcome everybody and hopefully have a nice, good event, and everybody be safe. Thank you.
Finally, next I'd like to introduce, from the Department of Public Works, Joe Lucido.
So thank you all for coming out today. This is one of those events that comes not very often. We sit on a beautiful park here, Stagefort Park. This is a great opportunity to showcase what Gloucester has to offer. We've had some pretty big events here in the past few years. The work that's gone into this event from the Public Works side, along with the committee, you know, when this was in its early stages, we were trying to figure out how it was going to work. We've gone back 250 years. It's amazing. We're looking forward to this weekend. We're looking forward to lots of people, and you know, we appreciate the fact that you all looked at Gloucester and decided this would be a great spot, and we're here to help along with the rest of the team from the city. Well, thank you all, and hopefully you enjoy the week.
Thank you, everybody. Some people say I'm speaking last. I like to prefer, as I'm batting cleanup here. So I'm here to thank a number of people that are instrumental to this whole event. Obviously, we couldn't do it without the City of Gloucester, Public Safety, DPW, all those folks. The Gloucester schools, we had a great opportunity to interact with the teachers and students of Gloucester High School a couple of weeks ago in preparation for this event. We want to thank all of the people involved in the tourism industry here who have been so welcoming. Amanda Pollock of Discover Gloucester, thank you so much to you and your staff. We also want to thank Annie and all of her staff, who not all are here at the moment, but really could not have done this without them. I do want to thank the people of Charlestown, who day in and day out through the centuries have worked hard to maintain the position of Bunker Hill as really one of the preeminent events in Massachusetts Revolutionary War history. And I want to thank also the hundreds, literally hundreds of volunteers who've put in thousands of volunteer hours to make this event come to light. As you know, we think about the people of Charlestown who 250 years ago lost everything, and the people of Massachusetts all across the Commonwealth who stepped up and stepped to help those people who the 400 or 500 households who evacuated Charlestown on that day or before that day. But to do a reenactment of this size requires the hands of many. And we are grateful for everyone who has volunteered. We're grateful for everybody who is volunteering. We do want to make one special presentation, if I might. There's one person who his name has been mentioned already, but literally we could not have done this event without him. He is the indispensable man. He has a personal stake in the telling the story because 250 years ago his ancestor helped build the redoubt on top of Breeds Hill. 250 years later he helped us build the redoubt on this hill. And I'm going to ask Ringo to step forward, Ringo Tarr. And as a token of our appreciation from the organizing committee to Ringo for all of his help, we have a signed print done by the historical painter Don Troiani of the redoubt scene at the Battle of Bunker Hill, and we thank you, Ringo. We really cannot thank you enough for all that you did. Thanks for that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Ringo. Lastly, I just want to mention that the police department was mentioning satellite parking. All the satellite parking is free this weekend, both Saturday and Sunday, with shuttle services to Stage 4. So thank you, everyone. And I once again want to encourage everybody to visit battleofbunkerhill250.com. Jonathan? Michael. I'm so sorry. Lastly, I need to introduce. Well, no, you don't have to introduce. Thank Michael DaCosta, who is organizing all of the ships that are coming in to make one of the best scenes, I think, of the weekend with the British landing. So thank you, Michael, so much. Thank you. Again, everything can be, all the information on battleofbunkerhill250.com, and at this time we can open it up for questions.
How many reenactors are you going to have? And then how many on each side?
Yeah, we're expecting a total of around a little over 1,000 reenactors. That includes British, provincials, civilians, interpreters. Yep.
That's great.
Yeah.
Will any of these reenactors be from the South Shore?
I'm sorry?
Will they be from the South Shore?
Yep. Yes. Yep.
The reenactors will be from across the country.
There's reenactors coming actually from all over the country up to this event today, and they'll start pouring in this afternoon. Yeah.
Any other questions, guys? All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
It's breezy there in Massachusetts, getting ready for Battle of Bunker Hill reenactment. 1,000 reenactors. Wow. Already dressed and ready to go. That should be quite a spectacle and very enjoyable for those participating. Right now it is 9:48 here on Friday morning. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. While we're here on a Friday, day after a holiday, things are looking pretty active around the Queen City, of course, and people are getting ready for the NBA draft. So that is another discussion. Sports, we love it. And so does our sports director, Nick Carboni, getting ready for the draft, speaking to Paul Biancardi from ESPN to discuss the upcoming draft. This previously recorded here on WCNC Plus.
WCNC Charlotte Sports Director Nick Carboni here in our live Impact News studio. We are talking NBA draft. As I sit here today, round 1 is just 6 days away. Hornets with the number 4 overall pick, and we are going to be talking draft all the way leading up to the big night on our WCNC Draft Night special. You can watch that live Wednesday night here at 7 o'clock on WCNC Plus. So we've been trying to talk to guests that, maybe pay attention to college basketball, maybe pay attention to what the Hornets are doing. That's all of the above and then some. I want to welcome in my good friend Paul Biancardi, recruiting director for ESPN. He's also a college basketball and NBA draft analyst and puts together the ESPN Top 100. So he is all over these kids from when they are in high school all the way leading up to the draft. So, Paul, first of all, thank you for joining me. Secondly, what is it like to follow these kids from when they're just getting started in their basketball careers all the way to draft night and you see them walk the stage?
Nick, that's a great point. I get to watch these kids, evaluate them, get to know them as people, their parents, their families, their siblings. And I feel like I'm on the journey with them, from high school to college. It's such a big decision where to go and who you're going to play for and all those great decisions they have to make. Some think about actually what major they're going to study. And then the guys that have a chance to move on to be NBA draft picks, whether it's the first round, second round, I pay attention to everyone, even guys that become free agents.
Who's the guy you're proudest of hitting on in that top 100 that went on to become, a lottery pick or an NBA All-Star? Like, who's the first guy that comes to mind?
Gosh, it's been 15 years, Nick. So it's a loaded question.
You got a high success. You got a high batting average too, but I don't know if there's one that nobody else saw coming, but Paul Biancardi.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'll tell you one guy recently that I hit on, which was Reed Sheppard. I made it known that I thought he was a McDonald's All-American, and he became a McDonald's All-American. Now, I did not know he'd be a one and done, but I did think he had the ability to be a first-round NBA draft pick. It just happened a lot faster than I even thought. And I was really high on Reed Sheppard. So that's a recent one that I can think of. But, boy, there's been some misses, too, now. Let's just talk about the hits. But there's been a lot of guys you think that, have a great opportunity, to be something special. And for different reasons, they don't make it.
Well, I don't think Cooper Flagg is going to be a miss. I mean, obviously, he was your number one in his class and classified early at. Actually, you had him graded as a 97. Is there anybody you've seen like him? Like, is there who would be the closest comparison coming out of high school and then one and done and being the top pick?
Well, first of all, let me backtrack. I first watched Cooper Flagg as a rising sophomore coming in high school out of Maine. His AAU coach was Andy Bedard. Andy played for us at Boston College. So I get a phone call from Andy. He said, "Hey, Coach, you've got to see this kid. He's special." I said, "Where's he from?" He goes, "He's from Maine." I said, "Did he play basketball or hockey? How good can this kid be out of Maine?" He says, "I'm telling you, he's really good." And Andy played for us at 2 years. We won the Big East championship. Then Andy transferred to Maine to finish his career. So Andy had a real good idea of what a high-level basketball player should look like. When I watched Cooper Flagg on film, I was more than interested. He was about 6'6 plus. You could see the versatility and athleticism right away. It's hard to see athletic ability on film. And then shortly thereafter, I saw him play in the summer live, and I felt that at that point he could be really special when it comes to high school basketball. The ESPN Top 100, a ranked player, somebody who can go as a high major prospect. And there were a lot of holes to fill in, but not that many holes. But you could just see how special he was and where he was destined to. So Cooper Flagg, for me, is a no-bust prospect in this draft.
Yeah, you talk about filling in the holes that there were, the few that there were. Is that one of his best attributes, to take something that may not be a strength and turn it into one pretty quickly? It seems like he's done, classifying early, coming out early into college, one of the youngest players in college, and he's player of the year.
let's not forget, he's supposed to be entering Duke right now as a freshman. He reclassified to become a freshman last year, so now he's in the draft. The elite players do that to move ahead in the draft quickly so they can get into that second contract a little bit faster. But Flag is everything that you would want in a prospect. And you mentioned it, he gets better at everything for one simple reason. He's a worker. He dedicates himself to the game. He's pure. You know, he may be on social media, but that doesn't drive his existence. What drives his existence is playing the game, competing, and winning. And when he doesn't win, he gets frustrated very quickly. So what happens is he goes back in the gym and continues to work on things that could be just a little bit better or something that he's really good at, he wants to be great at. Now, he's the ultimate worker. It's his approach to the game, his mindset during the game. And Nick, it's as simple as this. He is one of the most competitive and coachable stars that I've seen in my 15 plus years at ESPN and in my 22 years coaching college basketball.
Consensus number one all the way next Wednesday night. Don't let those clickbait headlines fool you. Is Dylan Harper the consensus?
No.
is Dylan?
No. Who's putting that out there?
They popped up. Cooper Flag's going to Dallas.
Let me just make one quick point. Everybody who does a mock draft been in a draft room.
All right, so we should have some fun with all the avenues we could take with this. So Dylan Harper, is he the consensus number 2? I know that you had Ace Bailey with a really high grade in your top 100. Seems to be a lot going on with him in this pre-draft process. So do you think Dylan Harper is the surefire number 2, whether it's the San Antonio or the else?
Yeah, I think he's the best overall basketball player. Flag. Super flag, productivity, potential. Same for Dylan Harper. When he was in high school, at one in the class. So that shows you his star ability. I called him a bigger, stronger Jalen Brunson. Great frame, could take contact. He can carry into the lane. He is really good, Nick, at driving kick and ball screen offense. Capable three-point shooter, excellent passer, plays with his head up, wide open, looking to make the next play. Really good competitor, needs to grow in the game defensively. I'll tell you this, at 17 years old, USA Basketball put him on the 19 and under team. The reason they did it, his maturity level, his decision-making, and his work habits. And let's not forget his dad, Ron Harper, 5-time NBA champ. I mean, this guy was born to be an NBA player.
All right, so we got to talk about Ace Bailey because the talent is very obviously there, and you have a unique perspective because you've covered, evaluated, been around these guys since earlier in their high school careers, and you're around the people that are around the players as well. There's been a lot of negativity about Ace Bailey in the pre-draft process. Where do you think that comes from, and what do you think of him as a potential NBA player?
Well, first of all, beside the evaluating and the interviews and being around the people that they are around, I had a chance to coach Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, and Ace Bailey at the Steph Curry camp. It's his private camp out in San Francisco where he only invites 15 of the top players in the country. There's a small group of coaches. I was invited into that circle, which I'm very grateful for, but I got to be on the court with those guys. And obviously I studied what Ace Bailey did at Rutgers and knew everything about him in the high school ranks. As talented as anybody in this draft, maybe more talented just in terms of pure upside than Cooper Flagg. Okay, but he doesn't have some of the intangibles just yet that some of the other players in the top half of the draft have. And I don't know why people say he's sliding, because when you look at the drafts from the past, he was projected as maybe, coming into this year, maybe number 2, number 3. We're talking about now, 5, maybe 6? I don't know if that's a slide or just a compliment to some of the other guys who've made some progression over the last couple of months. Ace Bailey, he's a 6'7", we found out at the combine, measured, a shot maker, and that's what he does best. He's a great athlete, second best athlete in the draft, in my opinion, to VJ Edgecombe. And he can score from anywhere on the floor. He's got great versatility and athleticism. He's today's modern small forward type. Why he's moving down a little bit, I'm not quite sure. His talent is undeniable. And, he has to pick up on some of the intangibles. I wouldn't say Ace Bailey is an everyday player just yet. Like Cooper Flagg, he's an everyday guy. Ace Bailey needs to become an everyday guy. But he is uber talented, and he'll be somewhere in the top 5 in this draft.
If the Hornets do take a swing at that massive potential for Ace Bailey, I mean, Charlotte, as you know, they're still a relatively young team. They haven't accomplished what they want and gotten to the playoffs, just a couple play-in appearances. They're still kind of seeing if somebody will emerge as that, leader on the court and off. What can the Hornets do to surround Ace Bailey and give him the tools that he needs to put that all together, as you mentioned?
Yeah, he would need a lot of attention from a maturity standpoint, showing him the way, explaining how to be a professional, how to time management your day, how to watch film in the strength and conditioning room, pre-practice, post-practice. He got a taste of that at Rutgers, but obviously with him and Dylan Harper, I mean, they didn't have enough maturity and experience around them to make the NCAA tournament. And that same measure.
You're watching Live
comes to the
Impact
NBA.
News here on
So if he
WCNC
were to
Plus,
be
just
with the
after
Hornets-
10 a.m. Friday morning. I'm Jane Monreal. Thank you for spending part of your morning here as we are watching a previously recorded interview with our sports director, Nick Carboni, talking about the NBA draft. He does have a special coming up on Wednesday. More on that, but we'll take you back now to the previously recorded discussion on the upcoming draft here only on WCNC Plus.
He's already got the talent. He's already got the confidence in his game, but he needs to know that people have confidence in him, and he needs to be shown the way in every way as a professional. I think he would have to stay with the team and somehow find some minutes on a team, as you mentioned, Nick, relatively young, knocking on the door to be a playoff team.
All right, just to show people how much Paul Biancardi nails the top 100 every year, the same basically guys in 5 of your 2024 top 100 are projected to be basically top 5 picks, and Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, Trey Johnson was number 5 for you. I mean, he could go 4 to the Hornets. Do VJ Edgecombe and Con Knipple give the Hornets the mix of talent, but also like maturity that they might need right away from a rookie?
Well, let me say this. If Ace Bailey's on the board, I don't think there's a decision to be made.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, you can't leave that talent on the board. You would have drafted the best talent that's left on the board, and I think that's the job of an NBA franchise when you're drafting this high in the lottery. And if Ace Bailey hits, I mean, some people say, and he does remind me a little bit, just backing up on him a little bit, Michael Porter Jr. type, and he could be better. So if he's on the board, I think you have to take a serious look at him. VJ Edgecombe fits, Con Knipple fits, Trey Johnson fits. A lot of guys fit, but there's a little difference in terms of talent between Ace Bailey and those guys. And I would say the next most talented player on the board is VJ Edgecombe. And he comes in as the best athlete, in my mind, vertically in this draft. Great finisher in transition, straight line driver, can be an excellent on-ball defender, and that could take a lot of pressure off of LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. Somebody who's willing to guard the ball, fight over ball screens, and be a defensive presence. He averaged over 2 steals a game at Baylor. He did a little bit of everything well, and sometimes people don't talk about his shooting because he's not a shooter, but when you study his numbers and you watch his mechanics, they're both good. He shot 39% in the Big 12 from 3, 34% overall. He's a worker, high character guy. I mean, really high character. Does everything in a mature, professional way. Guys would love being with him. He's a great teammate. And I think those numbers from the shooting perspective would go up. And then you get the defense, the straight line drive ability. He doesn't have to take shots from other guys, but he could be capable to score some points each game, and he gives it to you on the defensive end. Con Knipple, my mind, the best pure shooter in the draft. If you're going to throw the ball to somebody in a stationary spot and say, make this shot, I'm throwing it to Con Knipple. So he's a floor spacer. He's a great catch and shoot guy, very good passer. Those are his elite skills, shooting and passing. He can shoot on the move, but he's great off the catch, and he's somebody who brings functionality to an offense. He can move the ball, he can make the assist, and he's a guy you can throw it to, and maybe, just maybe, he'll throw it to you because he has that kind of awareness. Probably has one of the highest IQs in this draft.
Is Edgecombe a player that, with his defensive intensity, and obviously the Hornets and Charles Lee, I think, did a lot of good work last year with this group to try to get him to lock in more on that side. Is he somebody that could both take some of that responsibility on his own as a rookie and kind of take it away from some guys, but also could it rub off on, a team that's got to improve in that respect?
Yeah, I think a little bit of both. I think, now, would he be a stopper as a rookie? No, but he would be a key defensive piece. With those steals come a lot of deflections that only maybe Baylor will chart. He covers ground well. He understands defensive concepts at an early age. He'll give you the competitiveness and the coachability and the basketball defensive IQ. And that can help stabilize the Hornets defensively. They weren't bad defensively. Some nights they were bad, but overall they were pretty average, I would say, defensively. And let's not forget, they never had their whole team all season long, so you had no idea what type of defensive or offensive team the Hornets were last year. And you don't know what they're going to be next year.
All right, so just want to let you know that our Danielle Stein and Nick Carboni will have their draft special coverage with Locked On Wednesday at 7 o'clock right here, only here on WCNC Plus. Bringing you back out here live now, the Live Impact Studio on WCNC Plus. About, it's 10:07 right now on a Friday morning, and we do want to get you out to what's happening live. This is in New York City, United Nations, a meeting that's happening right now about threats to international peace and security, the Security Council meeting, and they are actually discussing right now the Israel-Iran conflict. Let's listen in here live on Live Impact News.
Including full access to inspectors of the IAEA as the United Nations technical agency in this field. For all of that to be possible, I appeal for an end to the fighting and the return to serious negotiations. At this defining moment, I urge this Council to act with unity and urgency for dialogue. And I urge the international community to rally behind the sole path that can deliver lasting peace, diplomacy, grounded in international law, including the UN Charter. This is even more crucial given the unfolding horrors in Gaza. Excellencies, the only thing that is predictable is that the consequences of continuing this conflict are unpredictable. Let us not look back on this decisive moment with regret. Let us act responsibly and together to pull the region and our world back from the brink. Thank you.
I thank the Secretary General for his remarks. I now give the floor to Ms. Rosemarie DiCarlo.
Thank you, Madam President. We meet as the scope and scale of attacks in Iran and Israel continue to widen, with grave consequences for civilians in both countries. In Iran, Israel claims to have targeted over 100 military sites and nuclear facilities, including the Kermanshah missile base, the Natanz and Isfahan nuclear facilities, and the Kondab, former Iraq, heavy water reactor. At the same time, government buildings, homes, and residential neighborhoods, factories, hospitals, airports, and refineries have been stuck in and around Tehran, Isfahan, Tabriz, Avaz, and among many other cities. The bombing on 17 June of Iran's state-run television channel during a live broadcast marked a chilling moment. Residents of Tehran and other cities have received warnings to evacuate on more than one occasion. Iran has closed its airspace until further notice and has shut some border crossings. In Israel, residential neighborhoods and essential infrastructure have been hit throughout the country, notably in Tel Aviv, Haifa, Bat Yam, Dimona, Petah Tikva, and Eilat. Several civilian sites have been directly impacted by Iran's airstrikes, including the Weizmann Research Institute in Rehovot, the Bazan Petrochemical Complex in Haifa, and yesterday, the Soroka Medical Center in Beersheba. A state of national emergency remains in place, with severe restrictions on air travel. Several areas in the occupied West Bank have also been impacted, and checkpoints and road closures are impacting movement, especially for Palestinians. Throughout the region, airspace remains severely constrained by these exchanges, not only within Iran and Israel, but also throughout Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Iraq, and beyond. The intensifying cycle of attacks and counterattacks has resulted in hundreds of civilian casualties, including fatalities in both Iran and Israel. According to Iran's Ministry of Health, as of 19 June, 224 people had been killed and more than 2,500 others injured in Israeli strikes across Iran. The health ministry added that 90% of the victims were civilians. Other estimates, based on local non-governmental organizations and human rights groups, suggest the death toll is at least double the official figure. In addition, there have been over 20 high-ranking Iranian military leaders killed, notably the Commander and Chief of Staff of the Iranian Armed Forces, the IRGC Commander-in-Chief, an IRGC intelligence chief, as well as several nuclear scientists. We've also received reports of significant displacement out of Tehran, a city of over 12 million residents, resulting in massive traffic jams. Fuel shortages are leading to long queues at patrol stations, sometimes for over 5 hours, further hampering movement. And still, many remain trapped in their homes in Tehran with nowhere to flee. In the absence of bomb shelters on air raid sirens in the city and widespread internet blackouts, further strikes are bound to harm more civilians. In Israel, the Office of the Prime Minister stated that, as of 19 June, Iran's strikes have killed 24 people and injured 915 others, the vast majority civilians. The strikes have also damaged homes, leading to the displacement of Israelis. Madam President, we are teetering on the edge of a full-blown conflict and a humanitarian crisis. International humanitarian law must be respected, including the principles of distinction, proportionality, and precaution in attack. Attacks directed against civilians and civilian objects and indiscriminate attacks are strictly prohibited. Medical personnel and medical facilities, including hospitals, must be respected and protected. We are witnessing in real time the impact of the conflict regionally, with missile launches by the Houthis in Yemen toward Israel and heightened tensions involving armed groups in Iraq. With each passing day of fighting, the danger, particularly for civilians, grows. Interceptions and explosives falling short have been reported over Lebanon, Jordan, Iraq, and Syria, sending debris into populated areas, sowing fear and uncertainty. Any further expansion of the conflict could have enormous consequences for the region and for international peace and security at large. The fallout of the conflict is also economic. we cannot discount the global impact of a potential disruption of trade through the Strait of Hormuz, described by the World Bank as the world's most critical oil passageway. Trade through this vital route has already fallen by 15% amid heightened tensions starting in late 2023. Madam President, International Atomic Energy Agency Director General Grossi will address this council shortly. Allow me at this juncture to express our appreciation to the IAEA and its staff still on the ground in Iran. We also convey our deepest gratitude to our colleagues who have continued to stay and deliver. At the center of the ongoing conflict are concerns about Iran's nuclear program. As the Secretary General has stated, the best way to address these concerns is through dialogue leading to a negotiated solution. But the window to prevent a catastrophic escalation and achieve a peaceful resolution has not yet closed, as demonstrated by positive recent openings for diplomacy. We welcome in this regard the talks between the foreign ministers of France, Germany, the United Kingdom, and Iran in Geneva today. We strongly encourage such efforts. We must pursue every possible opportunity to de-escalate, to cease the hostilities, to settle disputes by peaceful means. The charter that binds all of us mandates it. The imperative for diplomacy has seldom been greater. Thank you, Madam President.
I thank Ms. DiCarlo for her briefing, and I now give the floor to Mr. Rafael Mariano Grossi.
Thank you very much, Madam President, dear Secretary General, dear Madam Undersecretary General, dear friends. Attacks on nuclear sites in the Islamic Republic of Iran have caused a sharp degradation in nuclear safety and security in Iran. Though they have not so far led to a radiological release affecting the public, there is a danger this could occur. The IAEA has been monitoring closely the situation at Iran's nuclear sites since Israel began its attacks a week ago. As part of its mission, the IAEA is the global nerve center for information on nuclear and radiological safety, and we can respond to any nuclear or radiological emergency. Based on information available to the IAEA, the following is the current situation at Iran's nuclear sites, which I offer as a follow-up to my most recent report to this Security Council. The Natanz enrichment site contains two facilities. The first is the main fuel enrichment plant. The initial attacks on the 13th of June targeted and destroyed electricity infrastructure at the facility, including an electrical substation, the main electric power supply building, an emergency power supply, and backup generators. On the same day, the main cascade hall appears to have been attacked using ground-penetrating munitions. Second facility at Natanz is the pilot fuel enrichment plant. It consists of above-ground and underground cascade halls. On the 13th of June, the above-ground part was functionally destroyed, and the strikes on the underground cascade halls were seriously damaging. The level of radioactivity outside the Natanz site has remained unchanged and at normal levels, indicating no external radiological impact on the population or the environment there. However, within the Natanz facility, there is both radiological and chemical contamination. It is possible that uranium isotopes contained in uranium hexafluoride, uranyl fluoride, and hydrogen fluoride are dispersed inside the facility. The radiation, primarily consisting of alpha particles, poses a significant danger if inhaled or digested. This risk can be effectively managed with appropriate protective measures, such as using respiratory devices. The main concern inside the facility is chemical toxicity. Fordow is Iran's main enrichment location for enriching uranium at 60%. The agency is not aware of any damage at Fordow at this time. At the Esfahan nuclear site, 4 buildings were damaged in last Friday's attack. The Central Chemical Laboratory, a uranium conversion plant, the Tehran reactor fuel manufacturing plant, and the enriched uranium metal processing facility, which was under construction. No increase of off-site radiation levels was reported. In Natanz, the main concern here is chemical toxicity. The Khondab heavy water research reactor under construction in Arak was hit on the 19th of June. As the reactor was not operational and it did not contain any nuclear material, no radiological consequence is expected. The nearby heavy water production plant is also assessed to have been hit. And similarly, no radiological consequence is expected. As stated in the IEA's update of 18th June, at the Tehran Research Center, 1 building where advanced centrifuge rotors were manufactured and tested was hit. At the Karaj workshop, 2 buildings where different centrifuge components were manufactured were destroyed. There was no radiological impact internally or externally. Let me now refer to the Bushehr nuclear power plant. This is the nuclear site in Iran where the consequences of an attack could be most serious. It is an operating nuclear power plant, and as such, it hosts thousands of kilograms of nuclear material. Countries of the region have reached out directly to me over the past few hours to express their concerns, and I want to make it absolutely and completely clear. In case of an attack on the Bushehr nuclear power plant, a direct hit would result in a very high release of radioactivity to the environment. Similarly, a hit that disabled the only 2 lines supplying electrical power to the plant could cause its reactor's core to melt, which could result in a high release of radioactivity to the environment. In the worst case, both scenarios would necessitate protective actions, such as evacuations and sheltering of the population, or the need to take stable iodine with a reach extending to distances from a few to several hundred kilometers. Radiation monitoring would need to cover distances of several hundred kilometers, and food restrictions may need to be implemented. Any action against the Tehran nuclear research reactor could also have severe consequences, potentially for large areas of the city of Tehran and its inhabitants. In such a case, protective actions would need to be taken. I continue to provide public updates about the developments at all these sites and their possible health and environmental consequences. The agency is, as Madam Undersecretary have kindly reminded, is and will remain present in Iran, and inspections there will resume as required by Iran's safeguards obligations under its NPT safeguards agreement as soon as safety and security conditions allow. In this context, let me restate that the safety of our inspectors is of utmost importance. The host country has a responsibility in this regard, and we expect every effort to be made to ensure that their security and their communication lines with the IAEA headquarters will be maintained. As stated in my most recent report to the agency's Board of Governors, and based on inspections conducted at the relevant facilities since then, Iran's uranium stockpiles remain under safeguards in accordance with Iran's Comprehensive Safeguards Agreement. You may recall that more than 400 kilograms of this stockpile is uranium enriched up to 60% of uranium-235. It is essential that the agency resumes inspections as soon as possible to provide credible assurances that none of it has been diverted. Importantly, any special measures by Iran to protect its nuclear material and equipment must be done in accordance with Iran's safeguards obligation and the agency. Therefore, it is of paramount importance that the agency's inspectors are allowed to verify that all relevant materials, especially those enriched to 60%, are accounted for. Beyond the potential radiological risks, attacks on such materials would make this effort, of course, more difficult. Madam President, the IAEA has consistently underlined, as stated in its General Conference resolutions, that armed attacks on nuclear facilities should never take place and could result in radioactive releases with grave consequences within and beyond the boundaries of the state which has been attacked. I therefore, again, call on maximum restraint. Military escalation threatens lives and delays in this and even more so during military conflict. For the second time in 3 years, we are witnessing a dramatic conflict between two UN and IAEA member states in which nuclear installations are coming under fire and nuclear safety is being compromised. The IAEA, just as has been the case with the military conflict between the Russian Federation and Ukraine, will not stand idle during this conflict. As I stated in this chamber just a few days ago, I am ready to travel immediately and to engage with all relevant parties to help ensure the protection of nuclear facilities and the continued peaceful use of nuclear technology in accordance with the agency mandate, including by deploying agency nuclear safety and security experts, in addition to our safeguards inspectors in Iran, wherever necessary. For the IAEA to act, a constructive professional dialogue is needed. I urge the members of this council to support us in making it happen sooner rather than later. The IAEA must receive timely and regular technical information about affected nuclear facilities and their respective sites. I urge in this regard the Iranian regulatory authorities to continue a constructive dialogue with the IAEA Incident and Emergency Center, which has been operating 24/7 since the beginning of this conflict. Nuclear facilities and material must not be shrouded by the fog of war. Yesterday, there was an incorrect statement to the media by an Israeli military official that the Bushehr nuclear power plant had been attacked. Though the mistake was quickly identified and the statement retracted, the situation underscored the vital need for clear and accurate communication, and the agency's unique role in providing it in a technically accurate and politically impartial way is obvious. Let me conclude by assuring the international community of the IAEA's continued support at this very grave time. A diplomatic solution is within reach if the necessary political will is there. Elements for an agreement have been discussed. the IAEA can guarantee through a watertight inspection system that nuclear weapons will not be developed in Iran. They can form the basis of a long-standing agreement that brings peace and avoids a nuclear crisis in the Middle East. This opportunity should not be missed. The alternative would be a protracted conflict and a looming threat of nuclear proliferation that, while emanating from the Middle East, would effectively erode the NPT and the non-proliferation regime as a whole. Thank you very much.
I thank Mr. Grossi for his briefing. I now give the floor to those council members who wish to make statements. I give the floor to the representative of China.
Thank you, President. President, I thank you for convening this emergency open meeting. I thank Secretary General Guterres for his statement and support his call for an end to the fighting and the return to diplomatic negotiations. I thank Undersecretary General Di Carlo and Director General Grossi for their briefings. As the Israel-Iran military conflict enters its 8th day, it's distressing to note that it has resulted in a large number of civilian casualties and damage to facilities on both sides. If the conflict escalates further, not only will both sides suffer greater losses, but the regional countries will also be severely affected. Israel's actions violate international law and the norms of international relations, jeopardize sovereignty and security of Iran, and undermine regional peace and stability. China unequivocally condemns this. Chinese.
Good morning, everyone. You are watching here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, a special meeting that's taking place at the United Nations in New York City. The topic of discussion: Israel-Iran conflict and trouble in the Middle East. So council members are talking right now, as you can hear from the interpreter there for the representative for China. We do know that the president is to meet with his national security advisors coming up later this morning at 11. That is going to be a closed-door meeting, so the media is not going to have access to that. Just want to let you know what's on his agenda today. And a decision from the Trump administration on how involved the U.S. is going to be in the Iran-Israel conflict is yet to be determined, saying about 2 weeks. But we'll take you back out now to the United Nations meeting here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
Must be ensured. The red line of protecting civilians in armed conflicts must not be crossed at any time, and the indiscriminate use of force is unacceptable. The parties to the conflict must strictly abide by international law, resolutely avoid harming innocent civilians, refrain from attacking civilian facilities, and facilitate the evacuation of third country nationals. Third, we must stay committed to dialogue and negotiation. Communication and dialogue are the right paths to lasting peace. The current conflict has interrupted the negotiation process on the Iranian nuclear issue. The attacks on multiple Iranian nuclear facilities set a dangerous precedent and could have catastrophic consequences. We must not waver in the general direction of a political settlement to the Iranian nuclear issue, and we must persist in returning the Iranian nuclear issue to the track of a political solution through dialogue and negotiation. China welcomes the talk in Geneva among foreign ministers of UK, France, Germany, and the High Representative of EU for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, and the Foreign Minister of Iran. Fourth, we must bring together the efforts of the international community to promote peace. Without stability in the Middle East, peace in the world would be elusive. The Israel-Iran conflict has led to a sudden escalation of tension in the Middle East and has also had a serious impact on global security. Recently, 21 Arab and Islamic countries issued a joint statement of foreign ministers calling for a ceasefire, resuming talks on the Iranian nuclear issue, and maintaining lasting peace in the region, which China fully supports. The international community, especially major countries with special influence on the parties to the conflict, should make efforts to cool down the situation rather than the opposite. The Security Council, as the primary body responsible for maintaining international peace and security, should play a greater role in this regard. We support the Council in taking necessary actions in a timely fashion. China stands ready to continue to strengthen communication and coordination with all relevant parties, build synergies, uphold justice, and play a constructive role in restoring peace in the Middle East. Thank you, President.
I thank the representative of China for his statement, and I give the floor now to the representative of Pakistan.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to thank Secretary General Guterres for his presence and thoughtful and compelling remarks. Secretary General, you spoke about a defining moment and our collective future, as well as collective responsibility. And we fully agree with you and your call to give peace a chance. And in that context, your appeal to end the fighting and return to negotiations. I'm also thankful to Undersecretary General DiCarlo for her complimentary briefing, as well as the briefing by Director General Grossi. We note in particular his view that diplomatic solution is within reach with necessary political will. Madam President, last Friday, the Council had an emergency session in the wake of Israel's military strikes, violating the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Iran in flagrant violation and contravention of the UN Charter and fundamental principles of international law. 1 week later, as a result of such irresponsible behavior, the situation has only exacerbated, with grave implications for regional and international peace and security. Pakistan strongly condemns the unjustified and illegitimate aggression by Israel. We stand in solidarity with the people of Iran. We unequivocally denounce the blatant attacks and military strikes carried out by Israel, which constitute a grave danger and a serious threat to the peace, security, and stability of the entire region and beyond, with serious implications. We offer our sincere condolences and sympathies to the brotherly people of Iran on the loss of life as a result of these unprovoked attacks. The ensuing humanitarian crisis and civilian toll on both sides is also deplorable. International humanitarian law must be complied by all sides. The attacks against nuclear facilities for peaceful purposes are deeply troubling. Such attacks contravene international law, the Charter of the UN, Statute of the IAEA, and relevant IAEA General Conference resolutions on the issue. It is the responsibility of the IAEA to clearly pronounce its legal position with regard to such attacks, as well as to report it to the Board of Governors and to the Security Council about the legal safeguards, safety and security implications of such attacks. The agency should fulfill that responsibility. Madam President, the latest crisis has aggravated the existing tensions in the region, arising from Israel's continuing ruthless assault on Gaza that has resulted in an unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe for the innocent Palestinians, as well as its recurring violations of international law in Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. The Security Council bears primary responsibility to immediately stop this wanton aggression and hold the aggressor accountable for its actions. The Security Council must fulfill its duty and affirm the following. First, categorical rejection and condemnation of Israel's attacks on the Islamic Republic of Iran since 13th of June, and all actions that contravene international law and the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations. Second, play its due role to end the hostilities and promote de-escalation for achieving a comprehensive ceasefire before the situation spirals out of control and threatens the peace and stability of the entire region. Third, clear denunciation of the targeting of IAEA safeguarded nuclear facilities against the provisions of international law and the UN Charter as reflected in the UN Security Council resolutions, IAEA resolutions, and international humanitarian law, including the Geneva Conventions. The Security Council must implement its own resolution 487. Fourth, call for dialogue and diplomacy to promote a peaceful and lasting resolution of the crisis. Diplomacy must be given a chance. Madam President, regrettably, Israeli unlawful strikes against Iran came at the time of intense diplomatic engagement on Iran's nuclear issue. These illegal actions must not be allowed to scuttle that dialogue. Parties must swiftly return to the path of negotiations, which is the only viable means to reach a sustainable agreement regarding the Iranian nuclear program. We note the willingness expressed by the United States to keep the door for negotiations open. We also take note of the dialogue between the E3 and Iran. We hope that the diplomatic efforts and engagements will bear fruit. We reaffirm our long-standing position that all issues concerning Iran's nuclear program must be resolved peacefully through dialogue and diplomacy in accordance with the rights, international obligations, and responsibilities of all the parties concerned. At the same time, verification activities by the IAEA as the competent international technical organization mandated to implement respective safeguards obligations should continue. The IAEA must continue its work in an impartial and apolitical manner to provide objective reporting and credible information regarding the issues under its purview. Madam President, this is a critical moment. The Security Council must fulfill its responsibility and facilitate peaceful resolution of disputes. Military means and coercion cannot bring about a lasting settlement. Dialogue and diplomacy, in full adherence to the principles of international law and the UN Charter, remain the only viable path to resolving this crisis. This Council must therefore unite in support of the Secretary General's call for end to fighting and return to negotiations and dialogue. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Pakistan for his statement, and I give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Madam President, we are grateful to the Guianan presidency for the prompt response to the request from Russia, China, Pakistan, and Algeria to convene this meeting. We thank the UN Secretary General for his opening remarks, as well as the Undersecretary General for Political and Peacebuilding Affairs and the Director of the IAEA for their briefings. Madam President, exactly a week has elapsed since the start of the escalation of the Iran-Israeli conflict, which the Security Council discussed on the 13th of June. In this time, the world has been flooded with images depicting the night skies over Tel Aviv and Tehran and other cities lit up with explosions of tens and hundreds of rockets. The apocalyptic predictions have become a reality. People in both countries have been forced to take shelter in hideouts with each passing day. The list of civilian casualties on both sides lengthens. As a result of the closure of the airspace in the region, many third country civilians have become entrapped and they are striving to find a way home. The Iranian peaceful civilian nuclear facilities continue to be targeted, and this is liable to plunge us into a hitherto unseen nuclear catastrophe. The UN Security Council, the principal body for the maintenance of international peace and security, cannot shirk its responsibility and must provide an objective assessment of the situation and to devise an appropriate decision. We cannot deny the obvious facts. It is indeed Israel which attacked Iran on the eve of the latest planned round of indirect talks between Washington and Tehran. Thereby, West Jerusalem not only demonstrated blatant disregard for the efforts that have been undertaken to seek a diplomatic solution to issues around the Iranian nuclear program, but also demonstrated contempt for its key ally, the United States, which up until recently had been declaring an intent to reach a compromise solution on this matter. It is worth recalling that the Iranian nuclear program is not a scroll secured by 7 seals, indiscernible to the international community. The nuclear facilities and installations in this country are under the safeguards of the IAEA and are continuously subject to scrupulous verification by agency inspectors. Not a single of the member states of this body is under more stringent oversight and scrutiny. Iran has been strictly complying with its obligations under the NPT and the Comprehensive Safeguards Agreement. The Secretariat of the agency's reports have no mention whatsoever about the presence of proliferation risks. So it turns out that Israel has disregarded the assessments of the Specialized International Agency, having on its own authority appointed itself a judge, single-handedly deciding to carry out strikes against a sovereign country with no regard for the UN Charter and international law. Just recently, in the Middle East, a tragic precedent occurred of an invasion into a state under the pretext of alleged presence there of WMDs, which subsequently failed to materialize. It's a pity that the United States, which demonstrated to the entire world this discredited example in 2003, which generated suffering for millions of people, does not wish to learn from its own mistakes. Today, the U.S., yet again, together with the UK, France, and Germany, is attempting to persuade all parties to believe the groundless fabrications about plans allegedly harbored by Tehran to gain possession of nuclear weapons. Nor can we forget the fact that the attack on Iran was carried out at the time when the entire world observed with horror the ongoing man-made disaster which was unfolding in Gaza and continues to unfold in Gaza, and was condemned the ongoing humanitarian blockade of the Strip and was awaiting the high-level conference in support of the two-state formula under the aegis of the United Nations in accordance with General Assembly resolutions. Instead of reverting back to the sole possible negotiated peaceful settlement of Palestine, Israeli military political leadership raised the stakes and expanded the geography of the conflict in the region. Perhaps the Western Jerusalem's calculations also are to have the new military misadventure detract the international community's attention away from the crimes perpetrated by Tzahal in Gaza and the West Bank. We have seen highly perilous attempts to drag third countries into this confrontation, and this, as was rightly noted by the Secretary General, would have colossal consequences not just for the stakeholders and the parties engaged, but for the entire region and international peace and security as a whole. We concur with Mr. Guterres' position about the need to avoid internationalization of the conflict. Madam President, the present escalation around Iran did not start yesterday. Having attacked the country, Israel first received a direct pass from a host of Western states. The rhetoric uttered by British, French, and German diplomats in the lofty chambers of the UN Security Council and the IAEA Board of Governors are equally dangerous, just as dangerous as the deadliest weaponry, the blatant blackmail of the leadership of the agency in order to compel it to draft a vague so-called comprehensive assessment on the Iranian nuclear program, pushing through biased anti-Iranian resolutions at the IAEA Board of Governors. All of this made those countries effectively complicit in the Israeli aggression. Let's recall that this specific IAEA report was one of the justifications used by Israeli leadership for the attack on Iraq. What is telling in this connection is a cynical statement from the German Chancellor, Mr. Merz, about, and I quote, Israel doing the dirty work for us. End of quote. The fact that the launch buttons are being pressed by West Jerusalem does not absolve Washington, London, Paris, and Berlin from responsibility for what is taking place. Russia views the ongoing intense Israeli attacks targeting civilian objects in Iran as completely unacceptable and unlawful under international law. As a result of these reckless actions, unacceptable threats are being posed to international peace and security. Nuclear facilities cannot be targeted by strikes. We demand that West Jerusalem immediately cease attacks and raids on Iran, first and foremost the nuclear facilities which are under the protection of the IAEA. We expect that the agency leadership will draft in short order a detailed written report in response to the reports for consideration of the IAEA Board of Governors and the Security Council with a frank assessment of the damage sustained by Iran's nuclear and energy facilities, as well as the safeguards application in that country, including in the context of the presence of inspectors there, inspectors whose lives were under imminent threat. We take note of the clear Iranian statements about its steadfast commitment to obligations under the NPT and a willingness to resume contact with Washington to forge possible solutions that dispel all baseless suspicions and biases vis-à-vis Tehran's nuclear program under the condition that Israeli attacks cease. We support this position. We share the Secretary General's call for an immediate de-escalation resulting in a ceasefire. We firmly believe that a resolution can be provided for in a sustainable way only through diplomacy and negotiations. The goals of nuclear non-proliferation, whose cornerstone is the NPT, cannot and must not be attained through aggression at the cost of innocent lives. We believe that solutions whereby Iran's right to peaceful nuclear activity and Israel's unconditional safety and security will simultaneously be upheld are feasible and attainable. We have conveyed these options to our U.S. and Israeli colleagues as well as Iranian partners. We stand ready to provide them with the necessary assistance in seeking solutions that are acceptable to all. For now, we still have an opportunity to avoid another devastating war that would have unpredictable repercussions for the entire region and world. We stand ready to seek relevant solutions and decisions at the UN Security Council to engage constructively with all parties who genuinely advocate diplomacy and dialogue. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for his statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Algeria.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I wish to express our appreciation to you for convening this urgent meeting, the second within a week, which underscores the seriousness of the situation before us. I thank the Secretary General for his remark and his personal engagement toward peace and stability in the region. And we echo your call for dialogue and for ending the fighting. I also thank USG DiCarlo and Director General Grossi for their briefings. Madam President, Israel's attack against Iran is an unprovoked and unjustified act. It constitutes a flagrant violation of the Charter of the United Nations. This is an attack on nuclear facilities under IAEA safeguard. If these safeguards, if these guarantees, and even the presence on the ground of international inspectors cannot guarantee the protection of such installations, then the credibility of the entire nuclear non-proliferation regime is called into question. If those entrusted with upholding this regime are unable or unwilling to condemn and denounce such violations, they must ask themselves, what is their purpose? And are they truly fulfilling their responsibilities? We must resist any attempt to justify what in essence is an act of aggression against a sovereign member state of the United Nations. Any misleading narrative is unacceptable. As Director General Grossi stated in an interview with CNN, we, the IAEA, did not have any proof of a systematic effort to move into a nuclear weapon, end of quote. These words merit our full attention. Madam President, it is imperative that everyone returns to a path of reason. Negotiation between the E3, the European three, and Iran. Negotiation between US and Iran with the facilitation of Oman remain a viable and a constructive option available for diplomacy. Algeria has always believed in the power of dialogue, and we echo the call of the Secretary General in this regard. Even in time of heightening tension, mediation and Charter's principle remain our unique, viable tools. Let me quote the Charter. All members shall settle their international dispute by peaceful means, end of quote. Madam President, international humanitarian law is clear. Nuclear power plant enjoy specific protection and shall not be made the object of attack. Attacks against such facilities are prohibited. If there remains a risk of radioactive material spreading from the impacted facilities, the potential danger extends well beyond borders, endangering civilian populations across the region. For my country, Algeria, there can be no double standard, no double standards when it comes to respecting international humanitarian law. Civilian and civilian infrastructure must be protected everywhere and under all circumstances. We have consistently warned against violation of international humanitarian law, notably in Gaza, where tragically violating IHL became the norm. Today, the same patterns of conduct are being repeated and repeated again. When we reiterate in the strongest term our condemnation of all violation of international humanity.
You've been watching a live Impact News, WCNC Plus, a live United Nations meeting talking about the Israel-Iran conflict that will continue throughout the day. We thank you, as always, for joining us here every morning, 9 to